This is Paul. Yeah. I was reading this equity of statute. The spirit and intent underlying a law as an aid to its interpretation. Yes. The equity of a statute. Yes. Now, equity is equality, and equity. Equality is equity, a self-explanatory expression. I once had talked about how equity is so important. Yeah. I was reading the state's response. The intent of the Domestic Violence Protection Act is to protect the victims of domestic violence and communicate the attitude that violent behavior is not excused or tolerated. But then I was reading the court instructions, and it says the law requires the order to say if the respondent received notice of the hearing and by what method. Since the judge needs to verify that service complied with court rules timely and proper, the judge will probably complete this portion for you. Now, I would have to agree with that the state's response would be correct. It's the Domestic Violence Protection Act, if the state had followed the actual rules of procedure and issued the protection order according to the requirements of the law. Now, in 2011, you issued a protection order where you did not do what the law requires. I myself would agree with that. I do not in any way, let me see here, in regards to states, to protect the victim of domestic, communicate the attitude that violent behavior is not excused or tolerated. Now, I had gone through the state's response that I do not tolerate any violent behavior on the part of those that are in the judiciary, that are elected or appointed to office, that have sworn they would support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, the intent of the Domestic Violence Protection Act is that it does not the violent behavior is not excused or tolerated. Now, for any sheriff, police officer, those that are judges, those that are attorneys, that think that the law does not have to be followed. You don't have to do what the law requires. You can simply do whatever you want and then say that violence is tolerated and excused. Now, when there's forgeries on the documents, and you forcibly removed my sons from my lives because of the crimes of those in Clallam County, I, as an American citizen, will not excuse or tolerate any of the violent behavior of those that have badges on. Now, the state's response would say, yes, probably in the city of Auburn, versus Hollis Markle 119 Washington, they probably issued the protection order according to the requirements of the law. That would have meant that the respondent had received actual notice and opportunity to be heard. Now, I don't know exactly who the respondent was in this case, but I do know who the respondent is in my case, okay? That would be myself. Now, when you issue a protection order that does not do what the requirements of the law require, don't tell me that the state isn't violently taking from me what I have the right to own. Now, just because a commissioner signs it, it doesn't mean it's legal.